Peace be upon you all. The year 2022 was a very special year, presented us with great and interesting games. If you are a person who is familiar with most games, you will know that this year is full of fun games and experiences. And without a doubt, one of the most prominent of these games is the two games that have become very popular. And a big talk among players is the game Elden Ring, Ragnarok. The games got a lot of attention and became very popular, and the most important thing is that both games had legendary experiences, and both games were nominated for the Game of the Year, at least in the first event that was announced for them in the Game Awards. I hope you enjoyed the video. Mohammed from Games Reviews by Simo with you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. At the beginning, let me clarify an important point. I personally finished both games. I made a review of all of them and added content, and I lived the real experience and enjoyment in each game. And every player who wants to discuss these games, and any game that deserves to be the Game of the Year, must be a fan of them and know what they're talking about. The common factor between these two games, they're all great and easily make you escape from your society and simple responsibilities, only to play those games. Both games have an incredible synergy, a game that pulls you in the depth and curiosity in the story, characters, and explorations. And another game that makes you addicted to the challenge, the weaponry experience, and the character construction in a magical way. Both games present the original feeling for the real enjoyment when you wake up from sleep and go to play the game, but in general, everyone has a different understanding of how to make games better. I'm Bob. You may be surprised by the answers of some players, and you may be surprised by the answers of others, and you may hear someone say that Modern Warfare 2 is the best game I've played this year, because it's simply a person who loves this series and enjoys online more than any game I mention. Or you may hear someone say that Horizon Forbidden West is the best because it easily presented everything he likes in terms of the world, the story, the characters, and the gameplay. In addition, the game, by the way, was nominated for Game of the Year. Or maybe someone comes to you with a game that he thinks is awesome and says it's the best game of the year. But let's get to the point. If we look at it from a professional perspective or a critic's, or let's say fairly, at least you have to have certain principles and you have to play the games that are nominated, and therefore you take them one by one until you know the answer to whether this game is worth it or not. And these principles may differ from person to person, but I personally, if I tell you the basic things that I can evaluate, I will take the first thing, the gameplay in general. The second thing will be the story and events. The third thing will be the drawings and how the game works technically. The fourth thing will be the value in exchange for the duration or content. So let's take a quick comparison in these basics that I put and see what each game presented from these basics. And we can almost have an idea. Or any game that deserves to be a Game of the Year. First, regarding the gameplay, Elden Ring presented a very special gameplay. It summarized the world of Souls games and adventures in one unique box. The amount of options available is endless. In character building, mixing, and changing the player to suit the character, and it's like you have the ability to change the direction of the game or its idea to more than one game. It's like it's a community of games in one game. Each build you make can give you a different path or experience. The weapons, abilities, and way of using them are very special, and it makes it easy for any player not to leave the controller and enjoy the game in a crazy way. Other than that, the game presented a lot of content, and it's like it's endless. The enemies, locations, dungeons, and explorations, as well as facing the bosses. One of the most important elements of the fun gameplay is the pursuit of the unknown. So the gameplay style and the encounter surprises, and the things you get from the bosses or enemies always make you ready. So the topic of the device can change with you every hour you spend in the game trying to improve yourself for the better. It's hard for me to cover all aspects of the gameplay in the game, but in short, I can say that Elden Ring presented a gameplay with very exemplary principles. As for God of War Ragnarok, the game reached an excellent stage in the gameplay. The game easily surpassed the previous release and was able to give the player a sense of complete gameplay. The combat system, even if it is limited, is at the same time very vast, and the amount of weapons and abilities in each weapon or character a lot, and it gives a renewed change and a different feeling every time. The weapons themselves have various abilities and always heal your enemy when used in the gameplay. The fighting styles and hits easily heal the enemy. Also, the supporting characters have increased the excitement of the gameplay. In addition to fighting, the game offers many elements in the gameplay such as exploration, dungeons, platforming, Metrovania, and many other things to get action, and RPG elements in the items, in addition to the variety of constant enemies, leaders, has special depth in equipping weapons and shields on the character, and the ability to unlock them in the game world as you progress. In short, this game also offers gameplay on its origins. In terms of gameplay, I can say that the two games deserve a full mark and are really excellent. Before we talk about the two games, let's first take the concept of artistic direction. Artistic direction is the artistic way of designing the game. It doesn't have to be realistic or impress you personally, because people have different tastes. There is an artistic direction in which the game can be drawn in a different way, even if it is very simple, but it can excel from an artistic point of view. Therefore, the artistic direction must be taken into account, because some games have an artistic direction that can be unfair to some people who do not understand this thing and tell you that the graphics are weak. Okay, now for the drawings. Elden Ring offered a very suitable artistic direction for the style of the game and its ideas. Okay, now for the drawings. Elden Ring offered a very suitable. The architectural design in some places is very excellent, and the imaginary places, and the building of ideas and environmental diversity in the subject of drawing is great and really embodied the world in the best picture. Even the details of the artistic characters, shields, and weapons, if you look closely at them, you will know that the game is really excellent in terms of drawings. We can say that the game presented great drawings and excellent artistic direction. But from a technical point of view, the drawings in the game were considered simple compared to modern games. Regardless of the art direction style, the game remains technically lacking many elements in terms of drawings. There are also many missing details in the style and drawing of the game. Therefore, it can easily be said that the game system is a bit old or an outdated game in terms of drawing, and many of the games of this time have surpassed it. As for Ragnarok, the graphics are excellent, even though it's a cross-genre game. The game was designed for the PlayStation 4. Despite this, the game achieved an amazing level of graphics. If you want to talk about the movement of the characters' faces, the details are amazing. As for the story, Elden Ring has presented a story or the elements of a very beautiful story in terms of the characters and their relationship with each other and the backstory of each character. Also, the events that happen between them are interesting to pay attention to. You really know that the story is something special if you know the details. You will love the story. But the problem with the story in this game is the editing. As usual in From Software games, the editing is bad in terms of the story. The player has to struggle, discover, and put together this story. Simply, you can end the game and miss a lot of the story. And most of the people who play Souls games, they don't care about the story. Whether they understand it or not, they don't care. They'll find the fun in the gameplay. But I always say, imagine you're playing a game from a software forum that has a story-driven, cinematic, long-term, realistic, and much talked about cutscenes. I'm actually saying that their games can cover a lot of game files. Anyway, in Elden Ring, the story is there, but it's not clear, and it's hard to get hooked on it. Unless you go look for it after you finish the game and understand it in detail, you might like it. As for Ragnarok, the story is the basis of this game. The special thing about this story is that Kratos' journey has been passed down for generations. Since the days of the PlayStation 2, we've been hooked on this character. And imagine, it's been 17 years and his story is still going on. As for Ragnarok, it presented events in a story that doesn't have an actor in this year from my point of view. A story full of emotions that makes you on your nerves all the time, waiting for something to happen while it's in your mind. And it's on your mind sometimes, even during the gameplay. Also, the story is full of noble characters that easily make you forget Kratos. You talk about the charisma in these characters, or their noble presence, or even their dialogues and voices. In addition to the connection in these characters, whether heroes or enemies, it's all legendary. Also, the surprising events in the story, and the sad events, and the things that are connected to it. In addition, there is a continuous comedy on top of that. So easily, when you see this mix, the story and the characters, you can say that it is really one of the most beautiful things we have seen this year in terms of the story. Speaking of the value of the game in comparison to the content, this is the point I would like to make for both games. Both games have a lot of content, a long duration, and the ability to replay the experience. Both games have replay value, discovery, changing your path, changing some things, and trying new things. The openness in both games, the side quests, and the things you do a lot makes it easy for you to think that both games deserve their price. A huge amount of content with enjoyable and satisfying experiences when you finish them. It's impossible to make you underestimate any dollar you paid for these games. In short, both games are very successful in terms of value for the content. As for the summary, let's go back to the memories a little bit. Anyone who finished Elden Ring at the time of its release would easily say that this is the game of the year, and no one will argue with me, because the game actually presented a very great experience, and it was a worldwide trend. Even people outside of gaming played this game, and they praised it and talked about it. Imagine that even Elon Musk talked about this game and played it and finished it. So it really was a legendary experience and became famous around the world. But after several months, when Ragnarok was released and when the person finishes it easily says that this is the game of the year. In fact, many may at this moment, after Ragnarok ends, forget about Elden Ring, especially that this game not only gives you a fun experience, it also reaches your feelings that can make you change your decisions. The game offers all the basics, the story, the gameplay, the drawings, the characters, the dialogues, in addition to the content in exchange for the price. So easily, Ragnarok's experience will be complete for most players. So the question remains for you now, after we discussed all these things. I want each of you to write in the comments which game deserves the game of the year, Elden Ring or God of War Ragnarok. Now we have reached the end of the video. First of all, greetings to the developed studios for the two games, because they really gave us great experiences. And secondly, greetings to you for watching, and do not miss the support with likes and sharing. And I'll see you, God willing, in other videos on the Games Reviews by Simo channel.